Like if you have the time to get your paperwork all backed up, it proves ownership. You're going to want to go the paper route. You're going to have to prove what you have to get it back after this collapse is what you're talking about. So there was a lot of documentation that was lost, and it took them forever to prove that they owned the properties after the war ended in the 40s, and they came back and they're like, that's my house, prove it. The bank's gone too. We can't even find records at the bank. You want to tell me you own this house, but the bank can't prove you have the house either because it's all got crushed into dust. It can't prove it. So there's no record trail unless you have that paper and you run out with it.
Welcome, Eagles, to another edition of Tradcat Night. Special guest, exclusive podcast right here on the tradcatnight.org website. Folks, I hope you all are having a very wonderful and blessed day. We've got David Dubine returning to the program from Adapt 2030. Make sure you get on over to civilizationcycle.com. He's got all kinds of other links there on his YouTube page, but Adapt 2030 is the page. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're into that dark winter script mode where we should be expecting, I'm going to say in the first quarter here, 2026. Having said that, David, welcome back to the show, and we'll try to get through as much as we can here over the next half hour. I was mentioning you off air, man, just bizarre extreme temperature ranges, and I was just mentioning on my show this morning and to you, like in times past, we used to make fun of our weathermen for like, you know, they do like the 7-day forecast. And I'm like, heck, they can't even get the next 6 to 8 hours accurate. Whether they're even going 10 days out. We were supposed to get a dusting, and all of a sudden we're waking up, and by day's end, by like tonight's end or into the early morning, we could have like a foot of snow. Not even remotely close. So welcome back to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me back. What you described to me is not that the weatherman can't forecast a week out or a day out in the weather for the 24-hour period. It's saying that our established models can't give the forecast for these extremes that we've never seen before. So these haven't happened before. So the models that are forecasting all this haven't run into this before. That's why they're getting it wrong. The models previously worked, but now we're adding in an enormous amount of extremes into there, and their extreme modeling does it because it's a very isolated event. They're more on a broad section of the entire atmosphere moving, right? Their data is incorrect, and this is the whole thing. We're moving into this period where we can't even forecast for these extremes because they're so far out of the bounds of anything we've ever seen before. And that's what the world's up against, growing food. And you, before, talking on the show, you said you knew or had talked to somebody who had the actual date of the reset. So for me, if you could answer that one, these two are going hand in hand. Like the reset gets closer as the extremes become more unforecastable and more noticeable by the general populace. So there's a ratio there. So your actual date of the reset, and then maybe we can plug that ratio in and get it a little closer.
The day of reset, the great reset, will actually happen on the Day of Atonement, and that's when the king can forgive all debts. And so next year is October the 10th. I think I have those in the correct order. Early fall. Stock market crash first, and then eventually that final economic card where they just do like bank mail-ins and or they just shut down everyone's bank accounts, like in the series on Netflix there with Robert De Niro, where it shows it shows them just shutting down people's bank accounts because one major bank went down and they want to protect everyone's other bank account or whatnot. That would all have to happen before summer's over. But the bottom line is we're being set up for that, like a cyber attack kind of thing in 2026 too as well, that I think they're going to try to pull off. Feel free to piggyback off any of that or whatever direction you want to take.
Well, you definitely want to get your documents in paper backed up. Then if that were the case, if you still have the time, which is good, we do have some time. Like on a to-do list would probably get paper certificates of all assets that you own, stamped, notarized from either the state or the county or wherever it comes from, the bank. To have that on paper, just like the old days, we used to have the stock certificates, like the paper stock certificates. Like even if they bailed in everything, you have the paper certificates, so you're the actual owner. So not in your hand, that you don't own it. Unless it's literally in your hand, these stock certificates. And you can still get them on paper, but it requires a fee. You need to wait like 6 weeks. You can finally get them. Those are the kind of people who want to get them and hold them for a very long time. We've all seen the headlines talk about Ozempic and similar miracle weight loss shots, but what most people don't realize is that major analysis just found out that people who stopped taking these weight loss injections gain nearly all their weight back within a year. That's the catch. These drugs only work while you're on them. They're expensive, and the moment you stop, your body fights back. This is why I like BioTrust GLP-1 Elevate, and everybody these days is obsessed with weight management results. GLP-1 helps my body naturally trigger the same hunger-controlling, craving-reducing signals that Ozempic would, without needles, prescriptions, or the scary side effects. It also helps reduce hunger hormones, supports fat loss instead of muscle loss, and helps maintain healthy blood sugar levels. For a limited time, you can grab a bottle of BioTrust GLP-1 Elevate right now for 40% off only at trimwithadapt2030.com. Plus, you'll receive a 60-day satisfaction guarantee and the free express shipping on subscriptions. Once again, go to trimwithadapt2030.com or click on that link in the description box below. And I actually did Coca-Cola the other day. I was working on a video, and I went over to image search on Brave, and then I found it was a 1963 Coca-Cola stock certificate. So I ran it into Grok, and I said, Grok, this paper certificate, I didn't cash it in. My grandparents gave it to me as the role, the scenario. I never cashed it in or took advantage of any of the splits. So how much is this stock worth now? And walk me through the steps. So how can I take this paper and turn it into today's Coca-Cola shares? It was like $8 at the time, and it had turned into $6,820 on the splits of holding one share of Coca-Cola over, since the 1960s, like 50 years, let's say. The only reason that's valid and they could do that is because they actually have the paper share that can be logged in and registered against a log of numbers for those shares. Right? Like there's a perforation number is perforated that number into the actual paper. So you own that thing. And the same with anything coming from the state. It's got to have those raised seals on it. Like if you have the time to get your paperwork all backed up, it proves ownership. And if you have enough time to convert over your stocks or bonds into actual physical paper, if they still allow it, I'm not saying they do anymore, but they did. You're going to want to go the paper route. You're going to have to prove what you have to get it back after this collapse is what you're talking about. You are going to have to prove it. Now go through the 1930s. This happened to a lot of people during the Great Depression. Like things were moving so quickly, and especially in Europe, pre-war Europe, like when the Blitzkrieg was coming and people were running for their lives, like a lot of people did not think about, I need to get the paperwork for the house ownership out as tanks were rolling down the streets. So there was a lot of documentation that was lost, and it took them forever to prove that they owned the properties after the war ended in the 40s, and they came back and they're like, that's my house, prove it. The bank's gone too. We can't even find records at the bank. You want to tell me you own this house, but the bank can't prove you have the house either because it's all got destroyed, kind of like the Twin Towers with all the computers registering the short positions on the airlines that morning, crushed into dust. It can't prove it. Crushed into dust. The German army comes rolling in. Your house is gone. The bank is gone. Crushed to dust. There's no record trail. Unless you have that paper and you run out with it. And it would not surprise me if the paper trail this time gets completely obliterated. People talk about EMP. Oh, it's going to be a whole United States. What if it's over the one area on the planet that housed all the previous information of all the banking records that's in one place? There's got to be like one area of servers or consolidated, information storage warehouse areas that can be hit with an EMP and that can be completely erased. So wherever that concentration of digital information for every human on the planet, all the banking records for the entire nation and every bank and every state is all held in the one same place, that would be an area that you would look for, not so widespread like, whoa, boom, EMP, it's a 50-mile square area. It would make national news. It would be devastating. But what would they accomplish? Or even a 20-square-mile area. They would erase all the banking data, so even if you had digital footprints and sign-in codes and digital and you'd photocopied and screen grabbed, sorry, we can't verify that. It doesn't exist anymore, so what you could give us is possibly a fraudulent piece of information, a fraudulent screen grab. We can't verify that. You got to give us another way to verify you own that house, that property, you paid off this, you own that. This is the whole thing about the reset. It's not just about it going to the zero level or whatever level goes to reset onto a new system for like coins, stable coins. It's about when that happens, you're going to have to prove everything that you ever owned in the past to get it in the new system. So please prepare and get that documentation of what you own now to carry it physically on paper into the new system and slap it on the banker's desk and go, that's my house, it's paid off. Look at this, there, the county stamp there's on it. That is my property. This is what you're going to have to do. Otherwise, well, what if the County Records Bureau gets knocked out in EMP or in a war, it gets completely destroyed and all the records are gone of who owns what in the county? Did you ever think about that? Or even at the state registry, what if it's a regional thing and all of like Tennessee gets wiped out from Nashville to here and all the records completely of land ownership all across Tennessee are lost, like literally lost. Anything digital gets lost. All of it digital is lost. What's left? Just paper. That's the only thing you're going to have on a claim against anything after this era because we got so dependent on digital. Now think about it, if you could wipe everything back to 1995 digitally that ever existed as you proving ownership for something. The only way you can prove ownership is going pre-95 or getting the paper for it. That's all I'm saying. Thanks for letting me ramble there.
Now, you had a video, something big is coming and the governments know it. Again, I didn't have time doing as many shows as I have this morning to kind of check it out. But in any case, what's this big that's coming? What did you talk about in this video?
Too long, don't read. TLDR, don't read it. I'll explain it to you. I really believe you're onto something, Eric, because, you know, looking up to these different kind of benchmarks, like in our imagination, we were looking at benchmarks like COVID. Okay, things starting to shut down. They're shutting off the planet. Boom. For most people, that was a go signal because things were actually moving enough where you had to move and behave in a different way. Then it kind of smoothed out, and you know, there's a lot of middle class inflation. A lot of people are AI's coming and losing jobs. Okay, this is happening, but are any of those like very clean signals through the noise? Yeah, kind of people are late on the credit cards. Yeah, jobs are disappearing, but like, is any one of those a game changer like COVID was when they said no more flights from Europe? Remember that? Like that's a game changing moment where you're like, something's gone wrong. Maybe we need to put our plans into action here. Good to prepare for all that. But my signal that I'm seeing right now is the money itself is changing on the planet. So that's a big one to look for. See, everything else status quo would run up to this point, and now suddenly the paper contracts aren't good enough for the silver anymore. Like what was the promise of we will get you silver if you have a contract for it and if you ask for delivery, because we got so much of it coming out of the rafters. And that suddenly doesn't, that's the whole system doesn't work anymore. So actually in real time it's happening. They're moving the silver pricing to Shanghai and Singapore at the same time. There's silver pricing in London and in Chicago at a COMEX. The movement of money is actually in play right now. So silver has always been money. A couple of years, I think it was 1867 after the Civil War had ended, we in America decoupled from our bimetallic system. In America, we used to use silver and gold both as money, both. But around 1900, the legislation started to come in to go to a 100% gold standard, thereby leaving all the silver and clipping it. Because I think at that point when the Federal Reserve was formed in 1913, I think prior to that, they understood they couldn't control two monies because there's no way to print out. If there's a second substitute of silver and then gold, then there's no way for the fiat to have inflation in it at all. Even though it's a gold-backed and a silver-backed, people aren't going to believe there's inflation. But suddenly there's only one monetary metal now instead of two. Like I think they did that on purpose to get rid of that 1913 formation of this Federal Reserve. That was planned 100 years before that. And it wasn't like they woke up in 1912 and said, yo, dude, there's a lot of bankers here. We'll sink a bunch of people on the Titanic and we'll form the Federal Reserve. Like even to get off of the bimetallic system was in the 1860s. So that was 50 years before that had been implemented. So who was back 50 years ago talking about, yeah, in the future, once we get to the gold standard, we'll take over America's money. Everybody talked about when this moment was come, when the paper contract market would no longer deliver the physical product, that was literally the end of the money system of this current one. We know this current fiat thing that we operate in America with the treasury bonds sold to give us more money, and then we can issue debt against that. And this is why we got $40 trillion in debt. Like our bonds are spread across the world. Everybody was buying at the point, but now they're not. And they would not be switching the system if they were not switching the money first in tandem. Now, what I'm hearing the most about is silver right now. Gold seems to be taking a damn super far back burner to the silver. And I don't know why the messaging on silver is so front and in the face versus the price of gold as well. There's a huge disconnect here of the amount of media storage is probably like 50 stories for silver and 2 for gold, something like that. But the money change is real, and the system is changing now. The actual money and value of what would be a new system's value passed between companies, countries, individuals, which you would call a stable coin, that is in movement now, but it's going to involve somehow silver and gold too. I think it's going to be a multifaceted system. They're going to have assets, they're going to have stable coins issued against assets, companies, but clearly they're not issue stable coins against silver and gold also. So if the gold price was, say 20,000 and silver was at 1,000 on a 20-to-1 ratio, gold to silver ratio, it's even been down as low as 9 or 15 through the past. That would make that even higher. Having an $80 piece of silver, a $1,000 piece of silver to issue credits against, to put that out into the populace to trade amongst themselves in the new digital system, yay, it's got to be backed by something. So if you could reprice all the metals and pretend like, oh, it's the old system breaking, but that was the whole point, is to move it into the new system, raise the prices of everything to absurd levels, and then issue stable coins off the fake perceived value that just some random, accounting house says this is worth this much. Okay, mint that many tokens. We think it's worth 100. No, it was worth 2 the other day. No, it's 100 now. Mint 100 tokens. It's going to be like that. So if you could drive the price of silver up to $1,000, $2,000, and gold runs up to, I don't know, 20,000, 30,000, 50,000, you got yourself a whole new reset based on what, Eric? Precious metals backed stable coins. That's what it's going to be in the beginning. And metals too, like copper and the rare earth minerals, like literally minerals and metals that can be used in industry will be the foundation of the new monetary system, and every one of those tons or pounds will have a total with it that can then be issued as stable coin. So it is a true metals-backed stable coin economy. Believe it, it's rock solid and will never fail again.
Well, in terms of everything converging, I mentioned, I mean, obviously geopolitically things are heating up all across the world. Back in the news, super flu. Economic side, like you said, a lot more people using credit cards, people not being able to find jobs, people who have 2 or 3 degrees or whatnot. Just walk into the store, each and every week. Every time I go in, I pretty much buy the same stuff on a weekly basis, week in, week out for me and my dogs. And price keeps going up. There's a convergence here of, it's not even just an economic reset. It's just like a reset in general. Where are you at in regards to potential blackouts? Since the last time I've talked, I've actually had 3 blackouts, 3 successive months. I've had blackouts, and twice they didn't give us a reason, like a car hit a pole or something like this. 2 of the 3 times there was no reason cited, and still no reason cited.
Yeah, I'll say something about with you too. The thunderstorm that rolled through about 4 days ago, it knocked our power out for 3 hours, and that was like what we consider a springtime storm coming directly from the west, 50, 60 mile an hour winds blowing through the field. That was a springtime storm, not the middle of winter. It's absolutely bizarre for me to see it. It knocked our power out for 3 hours. So that was the first long power outage we had in probably, 6 or 8 months. But here is the thing that keeps happening week after week after week is, I have a battery backup on a couple different things. One for the screen. I got screens here behind the video, I got a microphone. All that stuff's on battery backup, along with a laptop and things. So if I'm going to work on data, I can still have a chance to save it instead of a cold shut off in the middle of something. So these keep clicking on and off, like at least 2 times a week, once, twice a week, every single week. And then some strange weeks I wrote down 3x. Like I remember it happening 3 times in a single week. It's been like this for months, plural, months and months and months, because that battery backup clicks off, it makes the beep sound, and then I have to go reset it. But that's happening all the time. So something with the power grid, it shouldn't be that unstable where it's tripping on and off the entire system enough to blank out a house. Multiple times a week, that something's off about that. But what I could say is, the reason I keep following the silver so heavily is I can almost give you not a date, but a event-based timeline of when they're going to come and implement this great reset. And take the bank funds you're talking about. It's not a date, it's an event stream. So if you haven't been following the COMEX, everybody, futures trading, increase of 10% and then another increase of 20%. So they had to put 30% more margin down to be able to hold the same positions. So what that did was that took people and shook them out of the market, and only huge players are left because they got these calls at like 3, 4 a.m. You have to increase another 10% into your margin account or else it closes at start of business or whatnot. A lot of people didn't get the message. Anyway, there's an enormous amount of people, smaller traders that got wiped out because they didn't come up with that money, and it was sold. Now the next thing is going to be, and it's going to be an event stream, so I'll read you to the end here. Normie consciousness will finally get it, as I think that's the word you were looking for, normie consciousness. At the end, when it starts to happen. So the first thing that would have been in order was that. If you were looking for events, when COMEX, anything, CME, raises their margin rate, that would be a first step. And if they raised it a second time, that would be a huge, huge step. Because that's what they did in the 1980s to get the Hunt brothers out of the market. And you can only get executed out on sell positions, meaning you can only sell out of the market now. This is the next step they've moved to. Now, when that really takes hold and you can buy no more positions that silver will increase in price, that you can only sell like they did to the Hunt brothers in the 80s, you know we're getting like further down the stream, and that's going to be a lot of business news, but not a lot of people are going to catch up on it. But here's what the big one is. If they really need the silver and it's really that critical for military uses or applications and companies that are in America, like we get the silver, national emergency, it's like imminent domain for your wealth. They're going to go into the ETFs first, like the exchange traded funds, like the SLV that holds almost 1 billion ounces of silver, and they're going to raid that silver. And that will be a one-time event when they raid the actual ETF strong holdings or wherever they have, they're going to issue the shares. Think of it the same way. SLV, the ETF that's silver-backed, has to have 1 ounce or 1 kilo or 1 bar of silver in there for every share that they put out. It's backed by metals. The more metal they get under their vault, the more shares of SLV they can issue out because it is a real backed fund. And it is sort of in the world we're envisioning here, but instead of being a stock like SLV, you're going to get stable coins for the exact same thing. More metal a government has, the more assets it has, the more natural resources it has, the more of those stable coins they can issue out because the more value of that. It's the same thing, but they got to have the physical thing behind it. So SLV, they got nearly 1 billion ounces of silver. Government scrapes that, and at that point, you should be like, whoa, because nationalizing the mines will be next, where any production of silver, gold, copper, coming out of anything America or anything America invested gets sent home here first, not for sale anywhere else. Once they nationalize the mines, like all production goes to the state, then you're like, then they're finally going to come to the people after that. Because you got to realize, once they finally come to the people, that is going to be complete chaos because you give them nothing else to lose because these prices will be going insane with inflation at that point. And if you're actually going to come for the entire populace's last vestige of anything they hold that could buy them something to keep them alive, like food, water, shelter, if you're just going to steal all that from them, there's no way you can possibly hold anything together from small town, medium town to big town. It's all going to flare at the same time. So that is very much a last-ditch effort there. So once they nationalize the mines, you know they're coming for the people next. But if they do that and try to really bail you in like the Great Taking and take all the assets and all the bank accounts and everything associated with you under digital brokerage firms and everything in between, if they scrape all that wealth, again, the society collapses at that point. Their validity of rulers shall cease and there shall be riots in the streets like minutes after that because nobody's going to accept all of their money getting stolen. I don't care if you're where you live, what city you live in, what your socioeconomic status, religious status, marital status, don't care, nothing. Somebody steals all your money, you're going to get angry. But if they do, it's all the people at the same time. Imagine the chaos here. That'll be the last step. Event-based, man.
Mantra, out of chaos comes order. And on the flip side to that, I mean, that's a whole other show in and of itself. But we're just about out of time. And hopefully we can keep doing these on a monthly basis. They're very, very important to our viewership. So appreciate that.
Yeah, I dropped off the last few months and back again to share some syllables with everybody. Check out the Civilization Cycle podcast, and that's where I'm running the long content, and Adapt 2030 on the shorter videos. It's important to talk about these items because I do believe we're being fed a lot of half-truths about how it's going to move in 2026, where they're saying, food inflation is going to drop 3%. Okay, well, we're moving to dollar a day digit or even $5 a day gains or even $10 a day losses in silver up and down, which is, at the end of the system. It hasn't happened since the 1850s where silver moved this much in price, and it's moving now. So go back to 1850 until now, it's the first time it did it. So you're like, all right, well, it's always been sound money, silver and gold before then, so we're moving back to this type of system again. But in that, this fiat paper money they keep playing with that you've known your whole life, it's going to change form. So in the form, as something goes from like a solid object into the ethereal, the atoms vibrate at a much faster rate until they break apart and they become, or the compounds devolve. And you're going to watch the dollar do the same thing. It was a solid thing, and it's going to turn into sort of smoke and mist in front of you as it moves to something else. And I hope you're ready for that. It's going to occur in not exactly a one-day event, but it's going to be long enough time to dizzy you and mesmerize you. So when the cloud clears, you're in the new system and you won't even know you got in there. So please prepare for this. Not fair what they're doing, and you can prepare with even a few ounces of silver.